So I don't know what you say about it. I just know that this group is a resilient group, and we don't give up till it's zero on the clock. I had a pretty good idea. Yeah.
Over here on the right.
Tyrese, Rick mentioned that you guys huddled up during the challenge there and just basically said, "We get a stop here. We're going to go." Just one, how much confidence and faith do you have in those situations to not necessarily need a timeout to stop? And then was that a spot on the floor that you sort of were trying to get to? We normally kind of see you go to that middle of the floor, little lane there.
Yeah, I think our conversation was more of a hypothetical because we thought Pascal got fouled there.
Imagine sitting courtside watching a player so effortlessly shift the entire floor that you forget to check the scoreboard. That is Tyrese Haliburton. Not because he drops 40 points on your head. Not because he posterizes anyone. But because the moment he touches the ball past half court, something changes in the building. Defenders tighten. Coaches reach for their clipboards. Teammates start moving. The whole game reorganizes itself around one person, and that person is smiling the entire time. That quality, that rare ability to rearrange basketball without forcing it, is exactly what Colin Cowherd was reaching for when he made a comparison that caught the NBA world completely off guard. Appearing on the Club 520 podcast, Cowherd painted a picture without naming names first. Likeable personality, plays with joy, not defined purely by scoring, elevates everyone around him, polarizing to peers but impossible to genuinely dislike, handsome, funny, and magnetic in a way that sells shoes and fills arenas. Then he said, most people would guess Steph Curry. But no, he was describing Tyrese Haliburton. Now before you roll your eyes, stay with this for a moment. Because the more you examine it, the less outrageous it actually sounds. Stephen Curry did not become the most influential player of his era simply because he scored. He became that because he broke the assumptions the entire sport had operated on for decades. Before Curry, the three-point line was a bonus tool. After Curry, it became the entire foundation of modern offense. Teams restructured rosters. Coaches rewrote playbooks. Analytics departments rebuilt their models from scratch. One player's style of play forced an entire professional league to reconsider everything it thought it understood about basketball. Haliburton is doing something quieter but structurally similar in Indiana. When the Pacers added him and built around his particular skill set, something dramatic happened to their offensive numbers. Their offensive rating jumped from 113.8, which ranked 21st in the league, all the way to the top spot at 123.5. Their scoring average climbed from 116.3 to a staggering 128.4 points per game. Those are not small improvements. Those are the kind of numbers that make front offices rethink everything. And just like Curry's Warriors, the transformation was not about isolation scoring or individual heroics. It was about pace, movement, spacing, and a point guard who made every single option on the floor better just by being on it. His regular season numbers in 2024-25 told part of the story. 18.5 points, 9+ assists, 4-7% shooting from the field, nearly 39% from three, 85% at the free throw line. A true shooting percentage sitting at nearly 62%. But the statistic that genuinely placed him in historical company was his assist-to-turnover ratio of 5.61. That figure put him in territory almost no one in the history of the sport has reached at that volume of playmaking. Then the playoffs arrived, and Haliburton did not shrink. He expanded. He became the first player since turnovers became an official statistic back in 1977 to record at least 30 points, 15 assists, 10 rebounds, and 0 turnovers in a single playoff game. Read that again slowly. 30 points, 15 assists, 10 rebounds, 0 turnovers in a playoff game. That is not just a great performance. That is a historically unique one. The kind that gets referenced in conversations decades later. And yet the criticism never fully disappeared. The anonymous NBA player poll still happened. Nearly 14% of his peers labeled him the most overrated player in the league. Game 3 of the Eastern Conference run still happened. 4 points, 2 of 8 from the field, 30 largely quiet minutes while the building waited for him to arrive, and he simply did not. The roller coaster was real, and his critics were not imagining it. But here is where the Curry comparison sharpens rather than dulls. Because Curry spent years being underestimated too. He was too small, too injury-prone. Could not handle physical defensive pressure. His shooting would not translate when the games genuinely mattered. The doubt followed him through his early career and dissolved only after championships and records made it impossible to sustain. Haliburton is somewhere in that middle chapter right now, where the production is undeniable but the perception wars are still being fought. The 2025 finals run answered some of those questions louder than anything in the regular season could. 14 points per game across 7 games, nearly 6 assists, nearly 5 rebounds. Indiana standing in the final spotlight for the first time in a generation, pushed there by a 25-year-old from Oshkosh, Wisconsin who plays basketball like it genuinely makes him happy. Like competition is something to enjoy rather than survive. That joy factor matters more than analysts typically credit. Curry built a global brand partly on it. Watching him play feels different from watching most elite players because he seems to actually love the game in real time, on camera, in the biggest moments. Haliburton carries that same energy. The celebrations, the communication with teammates, the creativity in the passing lanes that suggests he is thinking about angles and possibilities most players simply never see. Off the court, the business parallel is equally striking. Curry's origin story with Nike is well known by now. They undervalued him, made a careless mistake in a presentation that reportedly had his name spelled wrong, and he walked. Under Armour stepped in. That gamble eventually turned into Curry brand, equity worth $75 million, and one of the most successful athlete shoe ventures in recent memory. Haliburton took a version of that same road. He stepped away from Nike and aligned with PUMA hoops, becoming the centerpiece of their basketball identity. The PUMA Hali 1, unveiled with designer Salehe Bembry ahead of the 2025 finals, was not just a product launch. It was a statement about where he sees himself in the larger cultural conversation around basketball. He is not content being a supporting character in someone else's story. He is building his own. That is what Cowherd was actually pointing at. Not that Haliburton is Steph Curry in terms of raw resume or championship count. Curry's playoff record across 147 games and a 24-5 series mark speaks for itself. Even at 38 in 2026, that competitive edge remains undimmed. The comparison was never about matching those totals. It was about a type of player and a type of presence. The point guard who remakes your offensive system without demanding the ball every possession. The personality who makes the whole market fall in love with basketball again. The competitor whose joy looks effortless but whose preparation runs deeper than anyone fully sees. Indiana needed that. The Midwest needed that. A franchise long overshadowed in a league dominated by coastal narratives suddenly had a face and a voice and a reason for the rest of the country to pay attention. Haliburton gave them that the same way Curry gave the Bay Area an identity that went far beyond wins and losses. Will the Achilles injury that ended his 2025 postseason define the next chapter or simply become part of the comeback story? That answer is still being written. But Tyrese Haliburton has already done enough to guarantee that the basketball world will be watching closely when he returns. Not because the comparison to Curry demands it, because he himself has earned it.